Welcome to Meliora's channel, your go-to place for C# and data analysis tutorials, products hands-on demos, and insider secrets to keep you at the cutting edge of innovation. Our goal is to break down complex tech topics to a level that you will easily understand to supercharge your skills. Without further ado, let's jump right in.
Welcome back. So, in today's lecture, we're just going to really go back to the basics. So, this is a very, very basic introductory lecture to Microsoft Excel. So, when we open Excel and want to create a new workbook, we simply go to New and we can click Blank Workbook. And if you go down, you can also notice the templates templates. For example, these ones take a tour. I recommend these ones when you're also getting started. These ones are also very good. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So just click blank workbook. And this is immediately going to open a new blank Excel workbook, which is the highest, let me say, organization of an Excel file. That's the workbook is the Excel file. And within a workbook, you can have various worksheets. So for newer versions of Excel, when you open your workbook, you automatically have a sheet 1. Older versions, you normally have like about 3 sheets or so, but for the newer ones, just one. And you can add more sheets using this plus button here. You can see it's more sheets. So, like that. Okay. So, at the top, we have something called our quick access toolbar here, which we have some functions that we use often. We have save, undo, and redo here, and you can also customize it using this drop down arrow here. Underneath that, we now have the ribbon, and here we have our ribbon tab. So right now we're on the home tab, which is what it normally starts you off in. There's also the insert, the draw, page layout, formulas, data, review, all that. And I also have the developer tab open as well. Okay. Now within each worksheet, like I said, we have work within each worksheet. We have our columns across like this, which are usually denoted by letters, and then we have our rows, which are usually denoted with numbers, numeric. So each sheet is composed of a number of cells, as you can see, singular cells. Now here we have something called the name box, which shows the address or the name of any cell as you click any active cell. So you can see now it's showing E4 for row 4, column E, like that. Here we have our formula bar. This is the area where we can type in formulas into cells, like such, and we entered as a value into the cell. Now, speaking on the cell itself, let's say C4 for example, the cell is a basic unit of the sheet and it can contain a varied amount of information if you remember the data types lecture. And we have a function in Excel called cell, which actually will return information about the cell. So what type of information? We're going to open the parentheses and we can see info type. So we can either have the cell address, which is just the absolute address of the cell, the column, color, content, format, all of this, type, with row, all that. So for example, let's select row, right? And let's use a cell, let's say F12. Okay, well, I put 13, 12. So now that we have that, what we're expecting to get back is 12, because that is the row of F12, because F is the column, 12 is the row. That's usually how it happens. So that's the cell, and you can get a lot more information from a particular cell. Now, a singular cell or group of cells can also be called a range. So this can be range C5, or we can have a range like this. Ranges in Excel, in terms of a group of cells, are usually read from the firstmost to the lastmost. For example, if we were to read this range here, this would be B5 to I5. And if we were to read a range this way, this range would be B7 to B16, down like this. And a range this way would read D8 to H17. Okay, so it's the topmost to the lastmost. So it's true for any range of cells. Using our name box, we can actually also assign a name to ranges. These are, we're now going to go into named ranges. So for example, let's use a function called rand. Okay, and let's use rand array. So let's get about 10 rows, just going to be one column. The minimum we want is 0 and the maximum number is 100, and we want all of them to be integer numbers. So let's just get an array like that. Okay, now let's just copy this and paste the values, right? There we go. And you can see that it changed. That is because rand functions like rand today, they are called volatile functions, meaning that any little change in the sheet they recalculate all the time. So now that we've gotten that there, so we now have this. This is the range C3 to C12. We can actually give a name to this range. If we set, there are two ways to do this. First, we can select all this, and then we can go to formulas and we can define name. And we can give a name here, and that name will now refer to this range. Or we could simply, pardon, I just clicked AutoSum. We could simply just come here in the name box, having selected the range, and type a name and press enter. So now you can see if I click on any individual cell in this range, I'm still seeing the row, this column and row. But if I now select all of them, then it changes to random num. And named ranges are amazing because now we can just refer to them as that name in formulas. And that's what we have. Now, if we want to format a cell, we have on the home tab a number of format options under the number function group. So we can either select from the drop down here, or we can also use this small arrow to check for no more formats here if you don't see what you're looking for in the drop down. But we're just going to go ahead and format this as a number for now. We can now, a cell, you can see it's an individual cell. For some, we can actually merge a group of cells together. For example, if we merge these cells, we can do merge and center for these cells here. So that's from cell G2 to J2. Now, one thing with ranges is if I want to put in data in this cell, I can. But when a cell is merged like this, it is still going to refer to the firstmost cell. So if you remember, the range typically refers to is from the firstmost to the lastmost cell. Like from here, it's from C3 to C13. And again, if you are going across like this, it's from this one to this one. But when cells are merged and centered like this, it's going to only refer to this range of cells that have emerged as the firstmost one, which is G2. So that's just something to note when you merge and center your cells. Now, text wrap, if we impute a long string of text, So if we impute a long string of text, and you can see it's spilling out of the cell, although it's not coming into the next one, we can do text wrap to force it to fit to in the space of the cell. Okay. We can also, you can see that right now the alignment for the text is bottom. We can do a middle alignment to shift it here. And we can also remove it from left align for the content. You can see all of them are starting from here to middle, and that's now going to change it. Or we can do right alignment there. We're going to leave it as left. We can also now, for our rows, we can also insert rows, either using insert. We can also come and highlight a row and right click to insert a row above it. Next, let's just go over the insert tab very quickly. Now this tab is where we're going to use to insert a lot of our graphs, smart art, and things like that, including our tables and pivots. But for this introduction, I'm just going to show you how to insert a shape. So we'll just come here to shapes. We can select on any shape. Let's go ahead and do the star, the sun rather. And you can just click and drag and it will be placed inside your Excel file. You can also adjust the fill. Let's make it green. And then the shape outline, let's make it a lighter green. Okay. Now remember that all this is on one sheet, sheet 1. So if we go to sheet 2, there is nothing there. Same for sheet 3 and 4. So all contents are organized neatly into their various sheets in the Excel workbook. And I believe continuing on after this, we'll now have, you can now go ahead and watch the data types lecture, which is already available. And I think this is okay for a very basic introduction to just the structure and how to do some basic things. I go in more detail in the other lectures that are already available. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.